Hello, my name's Robert McKay. Of course, the channel is Whiskey for Beginners. If you would please subscribe and like and all the good stuff that we YouTube characters like people to do, I would appreciate it. I hadn't realized it, but I am almost to the end of my long list of Whiskey Basics videos. I have 36 here as I look at the list. This will be number 33. I was beginning to think I'd never get done, and all of a sudden I'm close to done. This one deals with the question, what are some quirks of different whiskeys? We've gotten the really basic stuff out of the way. Now we're getting to the just merely basic stuff. And different whiskeys do have their different characteristics. But there are some whiskeys which are distinctive, even among the distinctiveness of each whiskey. And I'm not going to cover a whole ton of things. This is basics. And of course, as soon as I start talking, the allergies kick in. One I want to mention is Balcones Distilling. Now, this extends across all the whiskeys from them that I've had. I haven't had them all. And they have what I've come to call the Balcones touch. I've not tried it, but I have a suspicion that if you gave me a flight of whiskeys, a totally blind flight, totally double blind, I don't know what's in the flight, I don't know what's in each glass, I think that I could pick out a Balcones whiskey among them all. And one of the things that they do is they toast all their barrels. The Woodford Reserve has a double oaked, and with the second barrel, they toast it heavily and then char it lightly. Balcones does that with all of their barrels, all of their whiskey. And when you toast a barrel, which means, well, charring is obvious. You shoot flame up through it, it chars the wood. Toasting means exposing it to lower heat for a longer time. The flame is not actually touching the wood. In fact, there are some cooperages, some distilleries, which toast the barrel without a flame at all. They use infrared heat. And that causes chemical changes in the wood, and I don't know what they are. I'm not a chemist. I'm just a basic whiskey drinker. But it causes chemical changes in the wood, which then impart different flavors to the whiskey than just a charred barrel does. And Balcones does that, and so their whiskey is very distinctive. Then there's peated whiskey. Now, I believe that different distilleries in the States are experimenting with peating different kinds of whiskey, but this is a characteristic of some Scotch whiskies, particularly from the island of Islay. And you spell that Islay. It looks like Islay, but you pronounce it Islay. Although in Scottish, or in Scotland, I'm sure they don't pronounce it the Texas way. I'm a Texan, not pronounce it the Texas way. I tell people I don't have an accent, y'all do. But what it means to be a peated Scotch is that when you sprout the barley and then you want to dry it and stop the sprouting, and so you have sugar instead of starch in the grain, thus leading to a higher alcohol content of the distiller's beer. And there's a whole process there. I won't go into it. I've done that in an earlier video. You can, oh, my brain just went blank. Oh, what they do is they burn peat. And you can look peat up online. If I explain everything, I'll be here forever. They burn peat and the smoke rises up, and that's what dries the barley. And it penetrates into the barley, so when they grind it and mash it in and then distill the whiskey, the flavor of the smoke comes through, and it's very chemical smell and a taste. There is, at least for some of us, a definite smell of a Band-Aid in the final whiskey. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. It seems to be one of those things either you like or you don't like, and there's nothing in between. Then there's Four Roses whiskey, and they do things very interestingly. They have two yeast or two mash bills and 10 strains of yeast, and they take and that makes, well, that's what I have written down in my notes, but that's not right because they have 10 recipes, so it's two mash bills and five strains of yeast. I write things down and then wait, did I do that right? No, I didn't. Two mash bills, 5 yeast strains, and that gives them 10 recipes. And they use those recipes to blend their various bourbons. Their basic 80 proof bourbon has all 10 recipes in there. The small batch, if I remember correctly, has 4 of those recipes. Their single barrel is, because it's coming out of just one barrel, has just 1 recipe. And they have a single barrel select and a small batch select, and I don't know what all else. And they blend those recipes in various ways to get what they want. And it's an interesting approach. They're the only distillery that does that. And each brand has its own quirks, but those are some of the more quirkier ones, if I can say it that way. And as I get to the end of this list, I'm coming up with less and less to say on each subject. And so what I will do is just raise an imaginary glass here and say, here's how.